Your TV deserves more than a plain wall and dangling cables. If you're tired of that cable waterfall look, I've got just a solution to add some flair to your space. I'm building an 8-foot TV panel to kill that clutter and turn your space into a vibe. So before I show you how this is made, let's look at what you're going to need to build one. The amount of plywood you will need for this depends on the size. To join the parts, I use screws, LED strip lights, and a wallpaper of your choice. If you want to achieve that high quality look, it don't have to be complicated. You just need a plan. First task at hand is to sand down the plywood. The back panel is going to be determined on the width of your TV. I'm using a single sheet of plywood for this setup. The reality is, I want the back panel to be wider than the TV, even if it's only 2 inches on each side. So if you're going with a bigger TV, you'll need to go with a bigger back panel. Behind the sheet of plywood, I need to build a frame that's going to hang on the wall. So if you cut all the parts up front, it's going to make everything go a little smoother. I wanted the panel to be raised off the wall approximately 1.5 inches. So I cut the strips to build that part out. The frame is doing a few things, not only adding strength, but it creates room to hide wires and also let the panel sit off the wall, which will create that nice floating look. But most importantly, it includes the French cleat system, which allow it to be mounted to the wall. As part of prepping the surface, I'm going to wrap the edge of the plywood with edge banding. This is one of those small details that really level up your project. It cleans up the edge and instantly make the whole thing feel more polished and intentional. The main reason for this is I need the surface to be as smooth as possible, so when I wrap the contact paper around it, it holds. To adjust the frame on the back, I'm going to cut the parts to the exact size. Anytime I can be efficient with cutting multiple parts at the same time, I will do so. The entire panel is going to make contact with the floor. With that in mind, I want the frame to take the profile of the existing baseboard. I find the easiest way to attach the frame is using pocket hole screws. The key is to keep the holes on the inside so they're not seen on the outside. The frame will have a 1.5 inch setback from the edge. And this should be enough room to give the LED a nice glow around the panel. There are a lot of screws to add, so I'll go around and do this repetitive step. To securely mount this panel to the wall, I added a French cleat system. I would recommend adding a minimum of 2. I did one at the top and then one lower. While working on the French cleat system, I made my way to the room to locate where the studs were in the wall. I want to make sure I at least contact 2 of the studs. Because I'm using 2 French cleat on this build, I'm going to create a template. I grabbed one of the cut-off parts I had and attached it to the back of the plywood panel. Notice the French cleat part that's going to be attached to the wall, it's a little shorter than the one attached to the panel. And the reason for this is so I can move the panel side to side. The French cleat parts that's going to be attached to the wall will be momentarily added to this piece of strip that I have going down the middle. Now, this is all about accuracy, so I can remove any guesswork. Now, I'll take this back to the room and transfer the exact location onto the wall. I marked the locations for the French cleat parts. Once I had that, I broke the template down and mounted the parts to the wall. At this point, everything has been sanded down. I rolled 2 coats of gloss paint on top of the plywood. This isn't about looks at all. I grabbed whatever paint I had on hand. The goal is to seal the wood and create a smooth, non-porous surface, which helps the contact paper sticks way better than it could on raw wood. I let the paint dry for a few days before adding the contact paper. In my case, there's an outlet already mounted up high, but in most scenarios, the outlet may be down low. I could just drill a hole in this panel, use an extension cord, and I'm done. Instead, I'm going to use a recessed outlet, but first I need to cut a hole. Same concept, just a cleaner approach. Before adding the contact paper, I took some alcohol and wiped the entire surface down. Now for the transformation, I'm using a black grass cloth wallpaper. You can find a link down in the video description to get more information on it. It's actually quite thick and you can feel the texture on it. I was trying to figure out the best way to go about this, but ultimately I started in the middle. I extended the roll out and trimmed it a little long. Now I can deal with this freely. I used the square to help me keep it straight for the first foot. I started off rather slow, carefully peeling the paper and using the spreader tool to smooth it out and remove any air bubbles. As I'm taking my time, I'm peeling off the back end, spreading this out, and analyzing the entire surface to make sure everything is as flat as possible. I carried the paper all the way to the end and tucked it under. The pattern is repetitive, so if you overlap it correctly, it can look quite seamless. With the hole already cut, I'm just gonna slice the paper and install the outlet. Now I'll take some time to iron out the edge and tighten up the corners. At this point, the contact paper is complete and the seams look great. I drilled a hole at the top of the panel within the frame. This is the extension wire that's going to connect the LEDs to the controller. So I'm going to route the strips from both sides of the panel, from the bottom all the way up to the top, where I'll make the splice connecting color for color. I mounted the controller, and this is how it's powering the LED strip. Connected to the opposite end, I have this transformer, and that's gonna be plugged into this outlet. I left this a little long, but I can still trim it down. The bracket was installed and the TV was hung. Now all I have to do is install a safety screw here on the side of the panel, and this way no one can lift it off the wall. With everything plugged in, there are no wires, no mess, just a clean, modern, backlit featured wall that can take any room to the next level.